Massachusetts are fines that he puts in place on the federal level.
Congressman Paul, who's right?
I think they're all wrong. I think this is a typical result of when you get government involved, because all you're arguing about is which form of government you want. They have way too much confidence in government sorting this out. So I would say there's a much better way, and that is allow the people to make their decisions and not get the government involved. You know, it's only been... when I started medicine, there was no Medicare or Medicaid, and nobody was out in the streets without it. Now people are suffering. You know, all the complaints going on. So the government isn't our solution. So I'm not too happy with this type of debate, trying to blame one versus the other. But most likely, we're going to continue to have this problem unless we straighten out the economy.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Cut the spending. And they talk about these no programs and all. But how many of the other candidates are willing to cut anything? Right. I'm willing to cut $1 trillion out of the first year.
All right.
I just want to say that I actually think if you look at what Ron Paul's background is as a doctor, and you look at medicine in the early 60s, and you look at how communities solve problems, it was a fundamentally more flexible and less expensive system, and there's a lot to be said for rethinking from the ground up the entire approach to health care.
Let's go to Miami. We have another question. CNN Español's Juan Carlos Lopez is standing by. Go ahead.
Yes, Wolf, our question now comes from Argentina. I believe, Jennifer, your question has to do with the future.
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening. We have many qualified Hispanic leaders. Which of our Hispanic leaders would you consider to serve in your cabinet?
I don't have one particular name that I'm going to bring up, but my litmus test would be to get individuals, Hispanic or otherwise, to understand monetary policy and understand the system. But also the Hispanic community is especially attuned to the foreign policy of non-intervention. They are more opposed to war than other communities, so I would think there's plenty in the Hispanic community that could give me good advice and an understanding of why a non-intervention foreign policy is very attractive to the Hispanic people.
I want to ask each of these gentlemen why they think their wife would make a great First Lady. Congressman Paul.
Well, she's been my wife for 54 years, and we're going to have an anniversary on February 1st.
Congratulations.
So, she's the mother of 5 of our children, and she's a grandmother of 18 grandchildren, does an excellent job, and she's also the author of a very famous cookbook, the Ron Paul Cookbook. So.
When I was 3 years old, I was very blessed that my parents brought me here from Cuba. They brought me here so that I could be raised in freedom and in liberty. President Obama has recently announced that he is liberalizing trade and travel policies. What would be your position as president toward the island of Cuba?
You said the U.S. should talk to everyone. Imagine you're in the Oval Office, you speak to Raul Castro, what would you say to him?
Well, I'd ask him what he called about, you know. What was the purpose of his call? No, I would ask him, what can we do to improve relations? Because I wouldn't see them as likely to attack us. When I was drafted in October of '62, that was a different world. I mean, there were nuclear weapons in Cuba. That was a different story. But today, not to talk to them and take the call and see what you can work out, helps Castro. It hurts the people, the dissidents, the people who want to overthrow him have always had to be, you know, nationalistic and unified behind the leader. So as well-intended as these sanctions are, they almost inevitably backfire, and they help the dictators and hurt the people. So it's time to change. The Cold War is over. They're not going to invade us, and I just think that a better relationship and trade relationship, so many people, I think I've noticed already, and since I've been talking about this issue the last 4 or 5 years, I think the people have changed their mind. The American people are getting much more open, not nearly as frightened. People, I don't think they see a jihadist under the bed every night, and we have to worry about that. I think there's I worry about overreaction and overconcern and lack of ability to talk to them when they call you.
How would your religious beliefs, if you're elected, impact the decisions that you make in the office of the presidency?
Congressman Paul.
Well, my religious beliefs wouldn't affect him. My religious beliefs affects my character and the way I treat people and the way I live. The only thing that would affect... The only thing that would affect me in the way I operate as a president or a congressman is my oath of office and my promises that I've made to the people.
Governor?
Ron Paul makes very good points. I concur with that.
I want you to tell voters who are watching or are here on this campus right now why you are the one person on this stage that is most likely to beat Barack Obama. Congressman.
Well, you know, so far we have some pretty good evidence that I'll do quite well and have a better chance than the rest to beat him, because if you do a national poll, I do very, very well against Obama. But one of the reasons is that the freedom message in the Constitution is very appealing to everybody in all political beliefs, because it includes free markets, which conservatives endorse, but it also protects civil liberties, the way people run their lives. If it is a God-given life and it's your life, you should have the right to run your life as you so choose, as long as you don't hurt other people. This means a lot more tolerance than some would like to give. So that brings people in who are concerned about civil liberties, and all of a sudden, my position undermines Obama completely and totally, because the foreign policy is different. He promises to end the wars, but the wars expand. A constitutional foreign policy will end the wars, and if you want somebody to talk about peace and prosperity, it has to be somebody who understands money and a foreign policy and free markets.